Ron, wake up. Jesus. You made everybody late.
Oh, no. I can't get back that 1 minute.
Anyway, it's week 4 NFL. Ron is back from his gallivanting to St. Louis and having ribs and then going to a wedding. I have done nothing. Let's get right to it. What did you think of last week?
Last week was good and very light. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to see much of anything. Going to be in a regular routine from here on in. I think we touched upon the games that I had already had action in. Philadelphia +3, and the Rams. Really got hot on the Rams. The Rams were by far my best play. And then something, I don't know if you did, but we've talked about it so many times. Baltimore-Dallas at halftime. Baltimore with a huge lead. You know the drill. You got to take Dallas in the second half. It's the same old story with John Harbaugh. And every other thing that happened, a lot of upsets again, a lot of those dogs +5.5 winning. That's pretty much all I had. Two games at the beginning, Philadelphia, the Rams, and then the halftime on Dallas. And that was about it.
I don't know. I don't understand people like you that can only bet 3 games.
Yeah, if I would have bet every single game on the board, somebody asked me this, I would have been 11-5. But I would have gone in thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? A lot of the weeks, if you bet every game on the board, you're really only going to go 8-8, 9-7, that kind of thing. It turned out to be a good week because I didn't have a lot of time, so I concentrated on a few games and got those right.
I was surprised the Bears could find no success against a mediocre Colts defense. And Caleb is obviously not the favorite to win Rookie of the Year at this point.
Yeah.
Houston no showing. We talked about it last week. There's something wrong with that team. I don't understand what it is.
I'm still probably behind the curve on Minnesota. If you ask me about surprises, not only did Minnesota win, but it was an unbelievably deserved win. And I just didn't see that coming. We talked about this. I was compelled to take Minnie if the line got just a little bit higher, and it didn't. So I didn't play the game. But never would have I expected 34-7.
Yeah, I'm annoyed that I didn't get involved in that with a teaser or something. I've just been lowering my volume a little bit. I don't like to do the teasers early in the year. There's just too much variance.
Yeah. For me, there was only one.
The Giants. Okay. I wish I had been more involved in that.
Giants, Cleveland. Yeah, I just not getting enough points with the Giants. I have them lower rated. I thought that they were technically the right play against Washington, but I needed 3 points. They didn't get it. And technically, I needed 7 points or more. We talked about that. The Giants had to get to 7, and they didn't get there. So basically, I just think I would be sick if I took the Giants with fewer points than I wanted to, and then they didn't cover like the previous week. It's just not a strong enough team for me to worry about right now.
Yeah, we mentioned last week that there were a couple of games where we were just getting shorted on the number, and out of principle, you just have to leave it alone. And I don't know that we're being old dogs who can't teach new tricks, or we're supposed to adapt in those situations. Caution is always the better solution. Denver.
No, but give us credit. You have to give us credit because we said it was an overreaction in the Philly New Orleans odds.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because the Saints didn't deserve to win. They were outplayed. The Eagles, we've got more coaching issues. They wouldn't kick field goals. At one point, they had twice. I believe they had twice the yards. Leading receiver, leading running back, and that leading quarterback for yardage, and they were losing, and it's just unbelievable. So, what pissed me off, and I looked at it. I was watching the interception at the end of the game, and when I watched it live, I'm like, I think it's an interception. I don't know. And then they showed another angle from behind. And for me, it was so clearly that it hit the ball. I mean, the ball hit the ground that I just walked out of the room. It was so clear to me that there was no way possible that the ball was going to be, that the game was going to be going to Philadelphia, and that they were going to be keeping the ball. And then I noticed I'm out in the garage. The game's over. I'm like, what the hell happened? They never gave him the ball. Yeah. So I asked two other people. One said it was too hard. Another one said, yeah, it did look like it hit the ground. Nobody ever said a thing on my timeline about it. And I know you didn't watch it.
No, I didn't see it. All I heard, because I tried to read up on stuff while traveling, is that Philadelphia hurt themselves more than anything in that game. And without Taysom Hill for New Orleans, there was an extra weapon that the Saints didn't have. And even the threat of Taysom Hill, sometimes it's not just, hey, he only gets 5, 6, 7 touches, maybe 10 touches, in a maximum. But the threat of him there keeps defenses honest.
Yeah, he's a real wild card. Even if he doesn't, even if they use him as a decoy, he's valuable.
So let me ask you about one particular game on my mind here that happened last week. What happened to Tampa? Did you anything special there? It's not that I'm disappointed in the result. It's just Tampa just let down.
Well, no, while we talk, I mean, they were already missing players, and then they lost more players. That Vita Vegemine guy in the middle, he was out.
Right.
It was a kind of a letdown spot for them. It just seemed like a good situation for Denver. So I didn't expect Denver to come on that strong. It just seemed like they kind of packed it in.
The only other question I have or comment I have from last week, unless you have some other questions for me, is that this is serious time now for Miami to score 3 points against Seattle. I know Seattle's, they're buying into the new staff and everything, but Seattle's currently, they played 3 opponents that are less than stellar overall. I thought Miami would still be able to move the ball on them. You got to feel right now that Miami is in serious trouble. Do you see any light? Did you see any strong points that we can point to?
I looked at my numbers while the numbers were being processed, and I tried to take an advanced lead. The Lions already had 3 injuries going into the last game. They added 6 more people, and nobody was talking about it. They lost. I don't even have their names written down, but they lost a key edge, the opposite of Hutch, on the other side that they're going to have to replace. They lost him for the season. Rag now looks like he's going to miss time. He's the best top 3 centers in the league. And they're missing, and they've lost 4 other people. And I sat there and I go, I got to take these Lions. I mean, the Seattle came in week 2 last year and kicked the shit out of the Lions. And the Lions have a lot of injuries all of a sudden, and they haven't really been that impressive. And I'm like, I got to take a position on the Lions. Mm-hmm. Then I realized after I take my position, I'm like, I'm not sure that was so smart. You look at the quarterbacks that Seattle has faced, throw them down someplace. Just 4 losers. Brissett, Boyle, Skyler, Bo Nix for first game or second game. They haven't played anybody. They weren't able to put Miami away. Miami was still in the game late. They're a little dinged up. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe it isn't that good. And then I get my numbers, and not only do my numbers not show any value on Seattle, it still shows the value on the Lions. So I can't figure it out.
2 people asked me to say and I hesitate to say it, but apparently there was some referee decision in the Lion game against Arizona last week that cost Arizona dearly.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know anything about that other than the fact that it sounded like Arizona played toe-to-toe with the Lions.
You know what? They snapped the ball with 2 minutes and a half a second, and Goff got hit, threw a pick, and it was a pick six, and they wiped it off the board and said the 2-minute warning had hit already, and it hadn't. So another bad referee making a major decision. It's almost every single game. It's just so regular. We're just conditioned to take it. But it was an awful call. It really was.
So,
but on another note,
yeah,
Jared Goff, first half, 12 for 12, 137 yards, 11.4 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. How do you not get a perfect passer rating? It was only a 153.8. Perfect is 158.3. How do you not get a perfect out of that?
No, I'm sorry. Well, it's somebody's formula. It's not the be-all, end-all formula. You just the eye test will tell you if he was near perfect or perfect.
Well, he played better at least, so it still wasn't all that impressive. Let me see if there's anything else to touch base on last week. That 49ers game is just an incredible debacle. I just couldn't believe it. I had the under, which was blown when they let the Rams score, 2 touchdowns right away. Atlanta, more horrible coaching. I mean, I don't understand what they were doing with the time management, and they should have kicked the field goal. I mean, if you thought you were going to be able to stop them, missing it on fourth, I just don't understand. They would have won the game if they had kicked that first field goal, if things had gone the same. So frustrating there. No pass interference in the end zone, clearly mugged. Another result changed. There were bad calls for both teams. They were really bad.
Yeah. Atlanta is an example of this is now a recurring theme with their coaching, and it's young into the coach's tenure. Maybe they need that new coach bye week to reset.
Somebody else went on a long sermon on this, and I hated to see it because I was hoping it would be original thought. It was original thought, but it comes out afterward. Is this Trevor Lawrence? He's a nothing. I mean, he has comparable stats to Will Levis. He's lost 8 games in a row. They've got some big problems with this guy.
Yeah, so I'm disappointed in Lawrence too because I thought he'd have a bounce back season. So I too was higher on him than what was going on. But what we're seeing overall with Jacksonville, I think, is a function of a horrific GM not filling in the gaps. They can't get off the field at certain times. Their best attribute might be their wide receivers. That hasn't been enough to carry them. Their offensive line isn't playing up to standard, but I knew there were missing parts in that. And their coach, there's still something about that coach that we talked about where he was living off that one Super Bowl year where they weren't even that great that year. They were winning with some daring moves by the coach, maybe ahead of the curve in terms of the metrics at the time that they won that Super Bowl with Philadelphia. But since then, I read an article today where he's now entered the hot seat.
I just feel like we all fell for the banana in the tailpipe with the coaches and Trevor. I mean, it's just we've given them both, all of them, a free pass for 3 straight years. Enough's enough. You are what you are at this point.
Yeah, it's tough being a quarterback in the NFL. You really have to get to the right system, and you have to improve. You can't stay the same. You have to improve because the league's going to improve, and they're going to find what your weaknesses are. There's no question about that.
Well, Washington has not punted since the first game of the season. I don't know whether you're aware of that, Ron.
Well, I'll give you another stat. They have not turned the ball over, which is amazing with a new
No
staff
turnover for the
and a
year.
new coach and a rookie quarterback. They have not turned the ball over, which is, frankly amazing.
You know what? I like to see this guy do well, Daniels. I just felt like he had I saw him, during game one. I'm like, I don't know. There's something about this guy. He's not impressive today, but I have a feeling he's going to be okay. Jesus, is he? He's done pretty well, and I think he's going to be. I think they play the Lions this season. Am I wrong? He's the wrong type of quarterback for the Lions to face.
Yeah. So I was watching the game because I was back home in time for the game. And I turned to my wife and I said, look at this quarterback. He's awfully thin. He's not even as built as Kyler Murray, who's not that built. I just hope with his style of play, and I know he slid a couple of times in the game, which is great, that he stays healthy because he is dynamic. He has part of that it factor you're looking for in quarterbacks. But boy, his body type doesn't scream quarterback.
You wanted to talk, you want to hit the divisions?
Where do you want to go? Divisions or first look into the next week?
Let's go. Well, it seems like the divisions should
okay.
go first.
Let's go with the divisions. I thought it was a good time to learn. I mean, last week we had brought up the fact that Cincinnati and Baltimore were still the favorites in that particular division. And both Cincinnati and Baltimore, compared to Pittsburgh, underperformed last week. And then Cleveland completely disappeared. You're talking about quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson wouldn't be quarterback of my team. So,
he sucks and he's playing poorly, but it's not entirely on him. I mean, that team has far more problems than just him.
It wasn't supposed to be that way, but as a result of the Watson trade and not having first and second round picks for a majority of the last 3 seasons, they haven't a chance to get it right. They would have to strike it rich in free agency. But because of capology, they were a little bit worried about being right up over with the cap. So what used to be a fairly deep team, and I still thought was pretty good, except for at linebackers, turned out to be a disappointment. Offensive line a little bit down, but the whole issue, there is a big burden on Watson because he doesn't stretch the field right now.
I don't trust Baltimore at all at this point. I mean, it's sad to say if they just get adequate quarterback play, the Steelers, if they can just win this week and start off 4-0, they'd have to play 500 the rest of the way, and they'd still have 11 games.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the BetUS numbers that I sent you the link for, and Baltimore is still far and away the biggest favorite just because they survived Dallas, plus 115 compared to Pittsburgh plus 225 and Cincinnati 0-3 plus 325. Cleveland's 1-2. And they're plus 1,000. So crazy division.
Well, it's preposterous. I'm looking up Circa to check out because they usually have yes and no's.
To win the division?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would probably make Baltimore still the favorite over Pittsburgh, even though there's a 2-game disadvantage and those teams play each other. You can expect a split when they play each other, but I wouldn't make it so pronounced as what I'm seeing.
You can bet the no on Baltimore minus 155. That's
to win the division.
Tight.
Yeah.
Are you? Life is just a box of chocolate all of a sudden for the Jets. It just seems like everybody drank a bunch of Kool-Aid. I like the Jets. They played well. Everybody's got them in the playoffs already. What do you glean from that game?
I would put them in the playoffs. I thought they would look sloppy. I'm not surprised they won. I'm not surprised they shut down New England's offense. I'm surprised that And I certainly wasn't surprised that Aaron Rodgers was going to be accurate against New England's 74% defense coming in. I think I mentioned that a couple of times on the shows, but I still didn't expect that margin of victory. I expected the Jets to improve after last week because of the 10 days to get their defense in order. They had that defensive line injury concern. Johnson's out for the year. Somebody else is out. So I'm bullish on the Jets, but I have them, as you know, to win the division plus 275. And right now, Buffalo's outplaying them. And so I still think the Jets will make the playoffs. But as far as winning the division, I think Buffalo is the deserved favorite.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Jets at all. It just, I think everybody thinks that they have done more than they have really done. So that was my only comment on it. Allen is leading the league in touchdowns, and Mr. Pickman hasn't even thrown an interception yet.
That's the key stat. They're +5 in turnover margin. And if you go in and you think that Josh Allen is going to limit turnovers, then you have what I think might be the best team in football.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see. I think the Commanders are a mirage, even though I like them. I had them last night. We said at the beginning of the year they could be a dark horse. I'm still not a believer in them. They've got zero defense.
This is all about culture for Washington. It's remarkably improved, and it didn't take much to get a little bit improved, but this is a whole new outlook in life. They have their quarterback, they have their owner, they have a different coach because Ron Rivera was a little bit too behind the times. They have a lot of guys who are willing to work with each other. They're not problem people. Yeah, it's all great, except for if you look at the stat sheet, there are warning signs. Let me tell you, there are warning signs. There are going to be bet against areas, bet against situations for Washington moving forward, in my eyes. So I think the best thing possible is that they upset a whole bunch of people in Survivor, and they're getting some attention right now because they are a work in progress. They are definitely working. I really like the culture of the organization, but there are going to some teams that are going to take advantage of their weaknesses. And I'm sure when your metrics spit out some stuff that shows Washington at the bottom of a lot of defensive categories, because they do for me.
Yeah, they're. I thought that they would be higher than they are.
Yeah, you start looking at your numbers. Again, I change over after 4 games. So we've only played 3. But I am looking at where they are, and certainly teams that are at the top 5 or bottom 5 are not miraculously in week 4 going to change and flip completely. So I'm looking at the stuff, and Washington still has a lot of holes.
Just.
I got to say this about that division. Dallas is paying the price for sitting on their behinds all off season. To think that Ezekiel Elliott and his band of running backs were going to have any effect in the NFL, it makes Dak Prescott completely one-dimensional with rookies on the offensive line. It's a very bad situation, and they didn't help themselves by really doing nothing. Where they have Delvin Cook that'll probably play, but he's 2 years removed from really contributing in the NFL.
Yeah, that whole division, it's goofy. I mean, I don't think any of those teams are who people thought they are. Well, I guess a lot of people thought Dallas was going to be garbage, but we'll know after this week for sure, I think.
Question for you, because, well, I'm going to make a statement, agree or disagree. The NFC North has surpassed Baltimore's division, the AFC North, as far as being the best division.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was the second best division coming into the season.
Me too.
So, yeah, I think that they've passed them. I mean, you can throw. You're playing Yahtzee with Lions, Packers, Vikings to win it, and while the Bears are 1-2, I think we know that they could do something like they did last year and kind of put it together at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers. The Bears I'm reading this 12-1 to win the division. I know they're 1-2, but you're right. Their defense is probably, I haven't looked at it as closely as maybe you have. I would rate the Bears as having the best defense of the four in the NFC North right now.
Oh, I don't know about. Yeah, I guess.
If not, it's close.
What's worth talking about? I mean, Minnesota's is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I may be undervaluing Minnesota because they have a boatload of sacks and they're playing run defense that I didn't see coming. So I probably stand corrected. It's just I think Miami's defense at some point is going to regress a little bit, but we haven't seen it.
Plus 1,500 out there on the Bears. I wouldn't take it though. The Atlanta just seemed they seemed like they were going to beat themselves no matter how that game laid out. One way or another, they were just outclassed, and you could see it even when they did well. They're certainly missing an element.
And they were playing the wrong team to try to eke out a win because that's what Kansas City does. They win, and typically not by margin, although this time they did win by margin, but it was probably because of Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, you've got another division where one of three teams is there. And I know people took Carolina to win the division last week at like 125-1. I wouldn't have wasted my money, but I'd like to have that ticket now.
Yeah. Well, Andy Dalton sure made a difference in 1 week. I mean, that was a 3 touchdown, 300-yard, 0 interception performance for a team that was left for dead after 2 weeks. And that doesn't bode well for what Bryce Young brought to the table, that's for sure.
So I believe the Chargers lost every single key player last game, didn't they?
And they have a suspension now. Yeah, Derwin James has been suspended, their best guy in the backfield. Junior Colson is out. He's their middle linebacker. Walking infirmary, and Herbert's not 100%. So what could have been a nice situational advantage for the Chargers against Kansas City. Kansas City, when you think of it, not only did they have one less day, they have a road Monday night football game and a road game. They were on the East Coast last week. They go to the Midwest to go home, and then they go to the West Coast this week. But I don't know who's on the Charger lineup that's going to be starting. It was a big break for KC to be playing this week against the Chargers.
Well, and don't they have a bye next week? So they can really sit these guys out.
Yeah.
And really get
a divisional game, you really want to win it. I don't think Harbaugh wants to sit anybody out. I mean, Harbaugh's going to try, even if it's a scrimmage on Thursday morning, but he's short-staffed.
As far as the Raiders go, honestly, I don't have a horse in that race. I think Pierce is, and I hate to say it, I just don't think he's a intelligent person. Every time he opens his mouth, you're like, wait a minute, really? He just seems to be out of his depth, and I don't like anything about that guy. And I did like him last season, and he inspired some great play at the end of the season. But I think I don't trust that guy in the least to be able to run that team.
Yeah, I've just started my analysis as far as the matchup analysis, and bounce back spot maybe, probably because the matchup analysis at first glance favors Pierce defensive-minded team to bottle up Watson again. And I don't see what Watson brings to the table against this defense. Conversely, Vegas is going to have to figure out a way to do something they haven't done this year, and that's run the ball. You're talking about a team that's running 50 yards a game. They were on it, and they thought they would be fixing it this past week, and it was the same old story. They didn't run any better or any worse, and they're at the bottom of the barrel in terms of running, just like Dallas. You don't want to be one-dimensional against defensive-minded teams. And it seems to me both Cleveland and Vegas are going to go into this game as one-dimensional.
Not a game I would enjoy. If they gave me free tickets, I wouldn't go.
Free food, maybe. Maybe not free tickets.
Oh.
Give me your read right now on San Francisco.
They're pretty average. I don't have the rating. They're certainly not near the top on anything.
Yeah, their vaunted run defense has let them down, and that exposes their pass defense even more. Their offense obviously is missing a handful of players here and there, and their offensive line is average with it. McCaffrey is one of those rare running backs that makes a difference. And then you have Ayuk with his hold in, hold out. He's trying to get acclimated. You lose George Kittle, a safety valve who had a monster day week 2, and then he's out week 3. And then Deebo Samuel, where you can use him in such a variety of ways, and he's not on the field either. And they still scored a lot of points against the Rams, but they didn't finish.
That was a horrible display by San Francisco. That's something that you either rebound pretty strongly from, or is just indicative of how far you've fallen. And Purdy's on the questionable list now. McCaffrey's in Germany? That's not a good sign. I'm not sure when we're going to see that guy. Obviously, they're not sending him to Germany if there's not big concern.
Oh my goodness.
They've got a lot of problems in San Francisco. I don't know how the hell they could be laying double digits.
Yeah. So, you mentioned Seattle. We both mentioned Seattle. They're 3-0, but they haven't. Take a look at the quarterbacks they've faced so far, Seattle. So this is their first test. Jared Goff. I give credit to what Seattle's doing, and they're doing it without their lead running back because Charbonnet isn't going to move the ball. They need Walker so badly against Detroit. It's not even close. It really will affect my handicapping if Walker is out on Monday night. And he gets the extra day to come back. He's only played week 1. But without Walker, and I like Geno Smith, and I think he can do things. Detroit's pass defense is still allowing too many splash plays, in my opinion. So there's a problem in terms of that part of the equation. But Seattle's defense is going to get a superior test against one of the most balanced teams in the NFL this week.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see who actually makes it on the field for the Lions.
Yeah, I don't think they're as banged up as other teams as far as key players.
I'm trying to get an update. I'm spinning. Yeah, even with all those injuries, they're still healthier than Seattle somehow.
Yeah.
As long as I got this open, Miami's decimated. Tennessee's fully healthy. Everybody loves Tennessee. They're going to find a way to lose that game probably, though, again.
I'm rocking the Panthers colors, huh? I like the colors. When they first came into the league, the teal was good.
New England's actually more hurt than San Francisco slightly. That's bad.
Yeah. this year, I think I've seen it really flip more than most years in terms of key defensive players, not San Francisco, because they have a lot of offensive players, but there's so many key defensive players out or cluster position areas that are out, like the Jets defensive line, so on and so forth. The Chargers missing a whole bunch of defensive players. There's so many defensive injuries, yet scoring has been, we thought there might be a little bounce back, or you thought there might be a little bounce back week 3. Not entirely a real bounce back in terms of that, but I think we are going to see more scoring if more people get hurt defensively.
Boy, there's a huge gap on the Rams. Chicago's very healthy, and we know what the Rams are.
Yeah, I can tell you firsthand because I look for situationals with games of the year, and Chicago was -1 in August. And this is such a good situational spot for Chicago because the Rams are off the San Francisco game. And then the way it played out, it makes it an even more of a situational spot. And the Bears are playing strong defense, one of the teams that's really playing strong defense. The Rams haven't found their footing in the run game yet. They want to, we talked about this last week. They were going to run Kieran Williams as much as they could against San Francisco's run defense, even if it meant that he would run for fewer than 4 yards per carry. So he carried the ball around 24 times last week. I don't think that's the greatest recipe against the Bears. I wonder if Stafford's going to have to work some magic with receivers people are not accustomed to hearing when they play the Bears, because the Bears have a better pass defense than the 49ers, and we knew that going in.
So do you just blindly bet the Giants this week?
Well, I haven't blindly bet the Giants at all, but what do I have here? There are a few teams that have a tremendous situational week 4 advantage, and the Giants are one of them. But one thing the Giants don't do is they don't win at home against Dallas for whatever reason. They're at one of their last 6, always a home dog, all not covering. They just don't seem to match up against Dallas. But I think it's a little bit of a plus to get them on a Thursday. I don't know what you think, because Dallas is in this incredible funk right now. You know, why give Dallas extra time to prepare for the Giants? They're just going to have to go through a normal walkthrough and stuff like that. But Dak Prescott is probably going to have a big day against the Giants. So the big question is, can the Giants and Daniel Jones, who had a good day last week, can they pivot and say, hey, we just played on Sunday. Let's just use that positive vibe and get this done against Dallas? Because the biggest problem Dallas and Washington has had the last few years is they can't win a divisional game. And if you want to be relevant, both Washington and Dallas have to win inside the division.
Well, that's true. I guess the look-ahead line was around 6 or 7, and it got down to 4.
Yeah, it's on my number.
It's back up to 5.5. It looks like it'll hit 6 again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not blindly playing them, but I would consider the Giants. Problem I have is the Giants are I do think Dallas is going to try to pressure Daniel Jones. They played him enough that they know how to play against him. And the Giants unleashed a pass rush, I believe, last week. So that was encouraging on their end.
Both the Saints and the Falcons, both on downers coming into that game. I still feel like the Saints are the better team there.
Yeah, normally in this series, I would take +3 either side any day of the week and stuff like that. I don't think we're going to see a +3, which will probably not have me interested until I do the matchup analysis. Again, I think Taysom Hill against that kind of defense is important, even as a decoy. So I'm going to be watching the injury news on Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I couldn't get these people to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. They're taking the Saints. It's down to 1.5. So I don't think you'll sniff a 3.
Important divisional game to try to get early footing and keep, 3 teams in the running.
The Colts I forget the Colts beat the crap out of the Steelers late last season.
It's possible. I don't think let's see if I can retrieve that.
I mean, it was like ugly. I think I had the Steelers and teasers and or did
30 to 13.
What was it?
30 to 13.
Indy?
Indy, yeah, they played them. This is the third time in a row Pittsburgh will play at Indy, third year in a row.
Yes, I don't hold on to these horrible losses that are very painful. I put them as a blur in my head, but that was a very important game, and Pittsburgh couldn't sniff even 10-point teaser range, and the Colts just seemed to have their number. I don't know why.
So I'm obligated for Russell and for Dan Rivera to talk positively about the Colts. So here we go. The Colts have had a mysterious aversion to having the ball in any of their 3 games. 20 minutes exactly in the first game, less than 20 minutes in the second game, and just under 25 minutes in the third game. Cris, I believe they play 60-minute games, and they've had the ball, 44 and 64 and change or something like that, compared to, some ridiculous number of, it's far less. It's just crazy. And the Colts can score when they have the ball. Their defense just can't get off the field. And they're playing a predictable team like Pittsburgh, where you think maybe they'll get off the field once in a while, because if they do, they could actually do some damage in this spot. So if you tell me Indianapolis has the ball 30 minutes in this game, they should win this game.
I didn't notice what did they do with Taylor last week?
They played him. Always when the news gets out that somebody's sulking or he's sitting or this and that, they're going to play him. He did fine. The biggest issue with Indianapolis is they play almost zero defense when it matters. And they're facing a team, like you started off saying, is that Indianapolis kind of has a good matchup when they play Pittsburgh's offense. And now we'll see. I heard this. I mean, it's too early in the week, and when somebody's questionable, they're playing. But I heard both Pittsburgh running backs are a little banged up, so it's something to watch.
Well, we got a new quarterback in there too. That's going to make a difference. So, you were referring to the Giants, not Dallas, with the poor divisional record. So.
Yeah, I'm referring to if Washington and the New York Giants want to be relevant in the division, they have to start winning divisional games. So I'm sorry if that was misleading, DT, because it's really Washington. You look it up every year, they're like 1-5, 1-5. New York Giants almost the same. They can't beat Philadelphia and Dallas, and I can't take the Giants seriously until they start beating Dallas. Just the same way I can't take the Bears seriously until they start beating Green Bay, because they can't win that key divisional matchup.
Bad, we got the same thing as Saints Falcons, 2 teams that there seem to be issues with.
With which
Jacksonville,
one? Houston. Yeah, the notes I have, my first notes here. Basically, it's situationally, it's another team where the Jags scheduling is weird, but the Jags are not feeling great right now. They just went on the road, and now they're going on the road again in a short week. Blame the NFL schedule makers, but in this divisional game, it's not a good spot. Not a good spot for Jacksonville.
Are they going to London the following week?
Yeah, I think they have back-to-back Londons coming up, right? I mean, Nobody consulted the Jags when they went to the schedule. No, they go in a little later. 1, 2, 3, 4. They go weeks 6 and 7 to London. Week 5, they're at home.
Yeah, I mean, I said the Jags were a banana in the tailpipe team. I'm not entirely convinced the Texans aren't either. Although I still believe in Houston, but they better get their act together.
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, a lot of moving parts with Houston. 5 or 6, as many as 6 new defensive starters. A little bit of an upgrade, but chemistry is still something that they're working on. And what better way to try to get the chemistry going versus a Jacksonville team that doesn't have chemistry right now? Lawrence has the weapons. I'll still say I won't be surprised if Lawrence puts up 250 to 300 yards in this game. But Stroud is going to have a good outing as well against the Jacksonville defense.
Well, Trevor looks like a backup quarterback out there. There's something seriously wrong with him. I was happy that I didn't fall. I didn't back Tennessee last week. I had Green Bay as the better team, and even without Love, I thought that I was reasonably confident that Packers could win that game.
Yeah, Tennessee's an organization that's a work in progress, and right now they don't have the right quarterback. You're looking at a rookie quarterback in Washington, for example, no turnovers. And you're looking at a guy who's had 1 year under his belt, a few starts in Will Levis, who's just making some very ill-advised decisions. And turnovers for struggling teams it's costly enough to have a turnover, but it's even more costly when you're a team that hasn't drafted well and has some holes on defense, holes on the offensive line. And you're asking your quarterback to play error-free. And if he's not playing error-free, you're going to lose games.
I'm kind of annoyed. There's the Vikings Packers game is kind of has Love in limbo, and Darnold, I guess he's okay, but he got banged up. I think people are going to be hungry to bet those Packers, and there's probably going to be some value on Minnesota.
Yeah, I show value on Minnesota already in the current line. Now, that's if Love isn't playing. I show value on Minnesota. What do you make of the situation? Do you care at all that Aaron Jones played with Green Bay last year and now he's with Minnesota?
Yeah, he's going to make extra effort, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be part of your metrics because Aaron Jones is already part of the equation because of what he's done. But so I'm aware of that. I don't know if it's worth anything at all, but I am aware of that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That's one of those games that's going to kind of have more clarity as the week goes on, I think, because it seems like a mishmash at the moment.
So what I would say about this game from a handicapping standpoint, this is my advice to myself and to others, is that it's a completely different handicap for this game, for this matchup, to have Love as opposed to Willis. Because now Willis is playing a defense that's going to be blitzing 50% of the time, maybe even more. Love will stand in the pocket, use his full year of experience last year, and try to hit some bombs against Minnesota's one-on-one coverage. Willis will take off and run in the same spots. He won't be seeing the people get open because Love has been in the NFL for 3-4 years. So my thinking, Cris, is that I'm handicapping the game completely differently based on who's the quarterback, so I can't handicap it yet.
Yeah, agreed. I don't want to focus on that game at this point, but I believe the line indicates that Love is expected to be in.
That's how I'm judging the situation too.
Yeah. I think he's going to be in. I mean, otherwise, if he's out, Minnesota should be the favorite.
Yeah, I would make Minnesota a 1-point favorite if he's out.
Oh, Bengals, Panthers. Jesus. They lost Brown for the season now.
Yeah. Well, I know he's out at least a great majority of the season. He missed last week.
That defense is horrible. How the hell did they ever stop Kansas City if they can't stop Washington?
Yeah, it's a problem. They missed Jesse Bates from over a year ago. The biggest takeaway I had from watching Cincinnati last week is that, it's hard to get acclimated when your first game is game 3. And T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, that dynamic was not working. They were not in sync. The ball was there and Higgins was fighting the ball all game long. He just couldn't get in rhythm. So they went to their number 3, 4, 5 receivers, which might work against Carolina. So Higgins is going to need a couple of games to get acclimated, even though Cincinnati scored a lot of points. But the bigger question, to your point, is Andy Dalton versus the Cincinnati defense. What's going on with the Cincinnati defense? And are we just saying that they're not a good enough defensive team, to be taken seriously? And they're a pretty big favorite, in my opinion, over 4 points.
Yeah, I mean, it screams Cincinnati. I mean, the line screams Cincinnati because they're begging you to take the Panthers or just leaving it there.
Yeah, I mean, the public should be on Carolina because Cincinnati had just lost on Monday Night Football at a big upset in front of everybody, and they're on the road with one less day. And Andy Dalton is the quarterback. You don't have to worry about Bryce Young now. So if the line doesn't come down, that's interesting.
The Rams, Bears, that's the exact same category as Vikings, Packers. It's just, leave it alone until Friday or Saturday to look at it again.
And why is that for the Rams? Just because of injuries?
Yeah, I mean, you're just hoping for some sort of news to. I don't see any value with either team at this point. There's just far too many unknowns. I mean, the Rams really blew their load against San Francisco. That takes a lot out of you. And now they got to fly out to Chicago, and Chicago's coming off a horrible, horrible game. These teams are supposed to reverse each other. I see a little bit of value on the Bears under a field goal, maybe, but not enough for me to be involved, I don't think.
Yeah, and honestly, the line should be where it is, 2.5, 3. So there's no real value on the Bears. The situation cries Chicago, and the Rams have 4 defensive sacks in 3 games. So maybe there is even though they drafted 4 sackers, 4 pass rushers to take the place of Darnold, not having Darnold still may be having some sort of effect.
Broncos, Jets. I expected that line to come down.
I agree.
And it did come down, and it's going back up. I guess Denver, lots of travel. Where were they? Where did they just come from again?
Not too far.
Tampa. Right? Yeah, they flew back to Denver.
Oh, okay. Tampa, and then they're going back to the Jets or whatever. At least they're off a win, so their morale is higher. I have conflict. My first reaction in this game is that it'll be I would say it would be a watch-only game, but I prefer not to watch this game anyway. So I'd probably watch some other game rather than have to watch Denver's offense. But I see conflict. I have some situations that favor both teams, but I'll look into it more.
Yeah, I'd like some more information on it. I'm not buying. I like the Jets. I think they could be they could potentially hit an elite level, but I just feel like, hey, let's not anoint them more than they deserve at this point.
Mm-hmm. Next game is interesting. What do you got for Philly Tampa?
I've got a bad coach. I mean, it's kind of odd. I'm surprised the line's not higher. I think that line's going to hit. It should hit 3.
Yeah. My line would be 2.
Well,
So,
that's too bad.
yeah, it's kind of in range. The situations, without getting into too much detail, the situations and matchups are one-sided, in my opinion.
Well, we don't know what the health issues are with Tampa. That's why I was kind of. We don't know who's going to be back. They could get a bunch of guys back for all we know. And Baker had a real off game.
One thing I will say about this game, I haven't talked about props much, and I'm probably not going to talk about props until I get really in rhythm with the rest of the season. But White, his name, Rashid White, who carried the ball a hell of a lot of times last year for a very low per carry average. He's the lead back in Tampa. He's supposedly slimmed down. He's not off to a good start, and I think the better use for Tampa would be to replace him with Irving.
Okay, that's duly noted.
Yeah, beat writers give good injury advice. I agree with that. But one of the things is that you almost have to wait till Friday's injury report, questionable, doubtful, and so on. Because when somebody's questionable, they could pop up and rush for 100 yards, catch 7 passes. Teams, especially college these days, but NFL, if you remember, Bill Belichick put everybody on the injury report. He was just playing with the system and stuff. So everybody's questionable because it's a long season and they get banged up. So people fool around with the report a little too much in my eyes, and I try not to read too much into it.
How did we forget that this is early season revenge?
Didn't forget, just didn't volunteer the information.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to get B-list input from you unless we drag it out of you, you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and another B-list input, when you have a sack ratio where you have 2 defensive sacks and you've allowed 13, that's not good.
Jesus.
Just want to note that.
Washington, Arizona should be like a fun game, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it should be a fun game. This will be interesting because Arizona has very, very seldom been in a favorites role in the last year and a half since the Kyler Murray injury. And even when Kyler came back, they were still in the underdog role an awful lot last year because their whole defense, their coaching staff was a work in progress. Now, I don't know. I think they were a 1-point favorite when it closed against the Rams, but the Rams were in a terrible spot in that game, if you remember. I think we went back and we moved on the Rams, moved against the Rams in that game. I did. So Arizona's seldom been in the favorite, and now they're over a 3-point favorite. How do you think they handle that role with Washington on the road after Monday Night Football?
Well, you would think that Washington's due for a big letdown, traveling across the country, prime time, short week. Arizona off a loss. Isn't the deck stacked against Washington here?
Yeah, so there's 2 factors in mind. First of all, you dealt a new coach. I know he's not a new coach, but he's new to this team, and the players are new. And you dealt him a road Monday Night Football situation. Not exactly the greatest thing in the world. And then off the upset and so on, it's a great feeling, and they're going to go back and they feel good about themselves. But then that's not enough for me. I need to do matchup analysis. And I need to do more matchup analysis about Arizona because their defense isn't perfect either. But it's something I alluded to at the beginning when we were talking in general about teams. I think there are issues with Washington right now defensively. And the only question I have on a Tuesday, because we're only talking on a Tuesday, things could change. The only question I have is, can Arizona close them out Or does Washington have a chance to backdoor cover because Daniels is that good and that confident? They haven't turned the ball over. Can Arizona be trusted if they have a 10-point lead with 2 minutes to go to not cover the game?
No, they can't be trusted.
Yeah. See, that's the big question, because offhand, this is a good spot for Arizona.
I got a flat 3 staring at me all morning, and there's nothing I can do with it. And the market's 3.5.
Yeah. 3 is highly interesting. But again, I haven't finished my complete analysis.
I feel guilty for just leaving it there. I feel like I'm the offline janitor. I should be cleaning up that mess in aisle 3.
But do you think Washington gets some love based on how they performed?
It just feels like a monster flat spot for Washington to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to look into how each of the matchup plays out. Flat isn't good enough for me to lay 3.5, but matchups would be interesting.
I was happy I avoided that. I think we talked about the previous week not taking the Lions over with Tampa Bay, and I sat out Arizona, Detroit over, and I was upset I had at the half, and then they scored a 3 spot in the whole second half. This seems like another game. How do you leave it? How do you not take the over in this game?
Washington, Arizona. Yeah, I think you're right. I played very few over-unders.
But this one is different. If you're doing the market analysis on it, those previous lines were, 51 was the low side and 51's the high side on this one. So I'm trying to figure out why that's the case. There's even a 50 out there. There's 50s out there.
Yeah, I'll look into that more, because it would be hard to take the under in this game.
Yeah, you'd have to put me under a lot of pressure. No. New England, San Francisco. Jeez, I wish I could just AI the final. Nobody would have to get hurt.
I would echo those words. There's really not a lot I want to even think about in this game. New England will try to shorten it again with the running attack.
Browns, Raiders.
Well, do you want to spend real money on Deshaun Watson right now?
No.
I mean,
I wouldn't bet either of those teams.
Yeah, Max Crosby has been quiet so far. I'm curious.
Well, the second game he did all right.
Yeah. I just think both quarterbacks are going to be under a lot of pressure in this game. Maybe it's one of those games you say, let's put some pizza money on plus 250 defensive TD. Yes.
Well, they took Minshew out. They put McConnell or whatever the guy's name in by the end of the game, and he scored a touchdown. So
why did they do that?
I don't know for sure. I don't want to misspeak. I would assume Pierce was just fed up with Minshew.
You have a question from City by the Bay. Thoughts on teasing Pats? I've never really seen anything or any prognosis that says you should tease through 10 or 14.
Keep talking while I do a little research.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason to me that you would tease a number like that up is if your number was something like 6 already. And so you had 3 points of value, and then your 6 or 7 point teaser would give you 9 or 10 points of value. But if you thought the line was correct at 9 or 10, and then you just tease them that way, I'm not sure that that's a profitable leg.
I just wanted to make sure. It's just horrendous. You can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, teases, you have to have some value already. And then your 6-point teaser is really 8 points of value.
I mean, they're different situations because there's well, we're skipping the Cleveland. We did the Cleveland game. The next game, the teaser protection line is 9 on the Chargers, and that actually can be profitable to tease the Chargers.
Yeah. So my problem is if both teams were exactly healthy, this line would be 3, maybe 2.5. So if you're teasing it down to 2.5, I realize the tables have turned with all the injuries. You're almost teasing it to a number that it should have been.
That's true.
Sniper West is still alive and Survivor. I must confess, I died last week. So that was it for me in my little 25 and 30 person survivors that I do every year. I'm one of those guys where they laid me to rest last week.
We're going to have to get the medical report before doing anything on that one. The Bills-Ravens, I think that's obviously the game of the week, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Important game. Buffalo's outplaying Baltimore to this point. Buffalo's practically outplaying everybody to this point, to be honest. What I want to do, I didn't have time before the show. Maybe somebody could look it up before we're done. What's the recent series history between Buffalo and Baltimore? I want to get some inclination. I believe they played in the playoffs 2 or 3 years back. That's an important game. I just want to see what Josh Allen has done against Baltimore. And I don't know that Lamar Jackson has actually played against Buffalo. It may have been his replacement because he's missed a couple of games. He missed 5 and 6 weeks in 2022 and 2021. I'm just curious as to how these quarterbacks have played in this series. If there's any games they played in the last 4 years. I'm not even going to handicap the game until I get that information. 3-3. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the quick response, City, also. Dead even against them. So when was their last meeting?
Wow, they haven't played since 2022. Buffalo won by a field goal. The year before, in the playoffs, Buffalo won by 14.
So Buffalo won the last 2. In the playoffs, they probably didn't see Lamar Jackson.
Well, let's see here. Lamar was 14 for 24, 162 yards, 1 pick.
This is the kind of game that if Baltimore gets off to a lead, I bet Buffalo.
Yeah, I like that strategy. I don't think Baltimore can put them away.
Yeah. I mean, you've got another quarterback who can make things happen against a defense that has shown a weird, for the type of talent they have, shown a weird desire to give up leads. Lamar had thanks, Brad, pick 6 at the goal line. Wow. I mean, this is going to be one interesting game, that's for sure. Sunday night.
I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, obviously, Baltimore needs this win.
Yeah. Probably the more quote unquote, if you call week 4 desperate, they would like to have this particular win, especially if Pittsburgh ends up being 4-0 before this game starts.
What do you have the line on this?
I have the line on this game, Baltimore by a half. So to me, there's some value with Buffalo right now. And at 3, it's an automatic play. It should never get to 3.
Well, I already took 3.
Ooh, I missed the boat.
Well, I paid. I paid like
Oh,
like 123 or 124.
okay. Yeah, 3 would be an automatic play in the series, and because I think you're getting the slightly better team right now.
There's a trend that I heard this morning that's just so strong. It's just unbelievable in Baltimore's favor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sworn to secrecy if I want to get information like that again. So.
Okay, you won't give out the information, but
yeah, but it's a credible it's a credible situational trend.
But you took 3 anyway.
Well, I found out about it after I took Buffalo, so I'm not sure I had buyer's remorse yet or not. So that's why I brought it up.
Different in college than the NFL, but would you agree? What's your take on this? Baltimore seemingly has a relatively schedule. They played a tougher schedule. That's a question for everybody. My notes say that Baltimore has played the tougher schedule.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong site to see their well, yeah, Baltimore's played the tougher schedule. Thinking about it.
Especially the way Miami has looked. At the time, Buffalo-Miami looked like a toss-up.
Yeah, significantly.
Yeah. So that's the one that stood out to me in my preliminary analysis as far as looking at the schedule. It's Monday night doubleheader again, Tennessee, Miami. I'm not ready to handicap that game.
No, that's don't waste my time until later on in the week when
let's look at the infirmary report for that one.
Yeah.
And then we already touched upon Seattle, Detroit. It's really a question of, to me, Goff and Walker. Walker is needed for Seattle, and Goff presents a challenge for Seattle that they haven't had in the first 3 weeks.
I thought it was interesting because Seattle's head coach, McDonald is his name. Is that right?
Yes.
What was his job last year, and what did they do against Detroit?
Well, his job last year was defensive coordinator of Baltimore.
How did Baltimore do against Detroit?
I have a short-term memory right now, so I think they lost.
The Lions got annihilated. I think they lost by more than 30. They couldn't do anything. So that's when you're talking about 6 to 8 major injuries with the Lions, and you're talking about a guy that's had success against the team, and this coach have had success against the Lions. I'd be awfully apprehensive. But I think the Lions have found their groove. They're finally learning that they need that ground ball control. It really helps them out if they're not relying on the pass. If they can really mow them down, on the ground, then they can get creative in the passing game.
So 3 immediate thoughts. First of all, this game's going to be watched more than Tennessee, Miami. Secondly, this is a rare road game for Seattle in prime time. They tend to play Monday night home games. Now they got them on the road. And thirdly, one player I'm interested in what his health is Laporta, the tight end for Detroit. I think that's an important player because he brings a different aspect to the team.
Yeah, as far as I've heard, they're going to. I think they're going to decide later on in the week. I think he can play, but they certainly don't want to abuse the guy.
Yeah, good game. I
So,
want to bring up a topic. Unless you want more on this game, I want to bring up one more topic.
no, go ahead.
We had a question on that was a comment from the YouTube video last week, and we appreciate all the comments, and we do try to look at them and get back. One of the comments was, I think it was more designed to you, maybe it was to both of us, but what do you decide if a game is 1.5? When do you decide to take the money line versus lay the points if they're short points?
I think I answered that guy in my DMs. And what I told him was, for me personally, because I know I'm always going to get the best money line available, that I don't even consider laying the points. But that doesn't help the average person that doesn't have as many outs as I do. Then it becomes a matter of, well, what's the better value? So, and then you weigh that against your mental health. I certainly don't like to lay 1.5 or 2.5 needlessly. I'd rather have the money line. But if I'm getting a crappy money line, well, now we're weighing the mental health aspect of, can I deal with, this team, winning by 2 and I lose my bet? So that's one part of the equation. But you need to take a look and at least have some sort of a chart that tells you what the approximate values are. And you don't even need the chart. All you need to do is look at the board every week, and you'll see what the approximate money lines are, and you learn to gauge what you should be taking. So look at the range at each of these books. What is the highest and lowest price? And if you're if you're able to get what's the best or close to the best money line price, I would recommend taking the money line.
Yeah, I look at a few different factors. Where is the line according to my power ratings? It depends on if it's early or late in the week. Where do I think the line's going to end up? Shopping is important. You might only find a 5-cent difference because the money lines really vary at that particular point. You could have a -1.5 and a pick'em that -1.5 is -110, and the pick'em could be -115 or something like that. And then of course you're going to you get a free roll on the one if you're taking the money line for 5 cents. So I'm looking at those kinds of things. I don't think I'd ever split the bet. If I was looking at +2.5 or something like that,
I've done that.
Something that I've done is take +2.5 at a shop that doesn't charge you your firstborn child and move it to +3, and then take that for 2/3 of the bet, and 1/3 of the bet I would take the best money line I can find. So you kind of wiggle room that way. But on the minus side, I think if you're at 1.5 just sometimes is dangerous. You have to know who's coaching, because some of these coaches are going to go for 2 at various spots. They may even go for 2 earlier in the game than you think they're going to go, depending on what coaches are out there. And there's more of them that we know of. 50-yard field goals are common, but it's also 4th and 4 from the 36, you're going for it. 4th and 4 from the 3, you're going for it. There's a lot of different situations, and you have to know the coaches. I saw in college, for example, 3 coaches this week kicked either 18 or 19-yard field goals, which is absolutely inexcusable. So I guess you have to do a little bit of handicapping, whatever the coaches are concerned. But at -1.5, I'd rather lay the money line than -1.5.
Yeah, and if people didn't see it, I've been sending out some sarcastic tweets that are actually, of value, because I'm just pointing out the stupidity of pricing. And I write pro tip on there as if it's like, oh, I'm sharing something really important. I'm just showing like really stupid stuff that's obvious to everybody. But look at the money line, look at the point spread, and see if there's a mispricing involved, because there was a bunch of mispricing at the mainstream shops this past week. I think I tweeted out 3 different photos. I could have tweeted out another 4 or 5 of stuff that I saw. I remember you could either take in the Chicago game, you could take was it the Chicago game? One of the games you could take +1.5 minus 110, or you could take the money line plus or minus 110. And it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was charging you 15 cents to go from the 1 to the pick. And obviously that's actually more than double what it's worth. I don't even think going from the 1 to the pick is worth 7.5 cents. I think it's probably worth about 5 cents.
Right.
So they're probably triple gouging you. So you need to learn what the values are of these points.
Yeah. Joey's thing is so important. A penny here and a penny there adds up. If you flip one game, it really helps your bottom line. It just one game. Typically, you're able to flip 2 games a season by, I could have had this line or that line or something like that. And the difference between winning and losing 2 games is a very big thing to your pocketbook.
Well, and the pricing really adds up. The Superbook is running minus 108 on NFL sides. And, I bet a lot of money there this morning. And that makes a huge difference. 2 cents a penny, it makes a huge difference. And it may not make a huge difference to, in 1 week. But when you go to the end of the year and you added up how much it saved you, it adds up. So,
yeah,
don't scoff at saving pennies. The pennies add up.
That's the importance of tracking, because if you track, you'll realize how much you save. If you never track, you don't know what you're doing on teases. You don't know what you're doing when you're betting favorites. You don't know this and that, whatever. You track so that you could improve the areas that you need to improve, and then pound the areas that you seem to have an advantage on, that you're seeing, that you understand. This is my strength.
Is Bookmaker a minus 108 now? I lost my mind. I had not noticed that?
Heritage will do that too. Plus their affiliate books will do minus 108, minus 107, even in a couple of cases. So it's worth checking out. Pinnacle really started all this.
No, they're 110. They're the same. I mean, they may run. A lot of these books have some odd pricing that comes into play every now and then.
Feature games sometimes, book by book, they'll feature a game at minus 105 or something.
It's funny too. I don't know what it is, and I don't know whether it's of value, but this morning in particular, I had a lot of opportunities to take some positions on games, either money line or spread. And I realized, you know what? Let it go. Because I just realized that sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, even though you're treating a book right and you're not, steaming them and this, that, and the other. They don't need my sharp action first thing on a Monday morning in volume, so to speak. And it's just sort of like sometimes you have to gauge how much a book is willing to take from you. And I know a lot of people aren't going to understand it, but if you're trying to keep accounts, you want to err on the side of caution, and you don't want them to cry uncle with you and limit you worse or boot you or whatever. And early morning's not a good time. They don't like that action. They don't want big bets early mornings. If there's a sub team in before the daytime cruise in, the timing was not good. And I just, there was a handful of times when I wanted to bet some certain stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I want to stick out at this hour. And I don't think that bet, I don't want it in my pendings for a week for them to be looking at. I don't know whether I explained myself well, but just thinking aloud of what I was going through this morning with holding off on some bets I could have made.
Well, I mean, sometimes you need the timing and it's important. Sometimes as long as you don't bet the max, then maybe you stay under the radar a little bit. Or your advice last week, same line at two different books. You could bet it both ways and they smaller bet.
Well, yeah, and I did. I had Kansas City plus 7.5, and I had Atlanta plus 13. It wasn't a big play, but I ended up on both sides of that with some unusual teasers that worked out. I get to bust Jared's chops tomorrow because he did the Chargers Cincinnati teaser, and I said neither one of those legs are any good. And sure enough, they both lost.
Yeah, teases are hard. You really have to study them carefully. I really believe personal opinion, of course, I really believe a majority of the people use teases as crutches because they just want more points and they're not understanding the concept of how to use them.
Yeah, I had long exchanges with people this week. In fact, I still don't understand how so many people are not getting the message of what good teasers are. It's consistent. And I think I brought this up before the season even started, and it's happening every single week where people are sharing their teasers and they're bad teasers. And it's like, wait a minute. Why are you putting in bad teasers? I just don't understand it. And the passion comes through from these people that they're really interested in it. They like to do it. And they're being so proactive about learning more. And that's what kind of strikes me aback is like, boy, this is a passion of yours and you're missing a huge foundation of what you're doing. And it's just kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, well, I go with still more the slow pace, get the fundamental handicapping in order. And we're going to be looking, both of us, I'm sure, at more of the matchup analysis, what your numbers say, what my numbers say. We're 3 weeks into the books now. We're 1 week away from full transition. And then on Thursday, we get to discuss the New York Giants all over again. That'll be fun. Yeah, 2 shows on the New York Giants. But I'm sure Ted will have some good audio for us. And I think it's an interesting week as far as some of the matchups. So I'm looking forward to diving into it more when we get back together on Thursday.
Well, as long as he's not getting his audio from Shannon Sharp, we should be okay. So we're going to be back on Thursday at same bet time, same bet channel at 12.
And if you have questions, comments, please leave them on YouTube and we'll get to them.
Thanks for joining.